This is Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Olivia's Book Club, the podcast. I am your host, Olivia Fierro, and I'm actually joining you on location in a hotel room in Charleston, South Carolina, which is making me feel even more enthused and excited for this opportunity to have a true Southern experience with the one and the only Delia Owens. So before I bring the author in, please remember to stay tuned because Margaret is joining us later for some recommendations. She was lucky enough to screen this movie, Where the Crawdads Sing, early with me, and we were in love as we are both obsessed with this book. So stay tuned for more conversation about that and other recommendations for adaptations over the years that have lived up to our expectations. But now, Delia, thank you so much for talking to me today and just for the gift that you have given to the world, which is Where the Crawdads Sing. I cannot say enough about how impactful this book was to me and how emotionally tied I felt to it. It is in my forever top 5 books of all time.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment about being one of your favorites. But what means the most to me, or just as much as that you were touched by the story, because I worked so hard to do that. I wanted to feel a connection with the reader. I had some important things I felt like I was to say, and it means so much to me that you felt that.
Well, it's a funny experience because when a book like this kind of catches fire and it seems like everybody is reading it and everybody is talking about it. And I believe, was it 2019 that it was published or 2018?
2018.
2018. So I didn't get it right away. I didn't grab it. And so I felt like this story had missed. And, sometimes it's like, okay, maybe this passed me by, which is a ridiculous way to ever look at a book because books are timeless, right? And so, but it was in the heart of pandemic and being stuck in my house that I finally sat down to read this in early 2020, and emotionally vulnerable as we all were. And I just remember sitting and for hours as I was finishing this book outside, crying and feeling so much beauty. And I was outside in my version of nature, which is a backyard swimming pool in Arizona. But just the power of human connection and the way that it spotlighted the sense of loneliness and how much that shapes us and how much we need other people. That's all in this story. And coming at it from the eyes of that time, it's no surprise that readers will find this book again and again, either for the first time or maybe through new eyes now as they're exploring the film.
I think so. I hope so. And that, of course, is one of the main themes of the book, is how much we need each other. And I told the story by having this young girl who's abandoned and doesn't have a community or a close family nearby. And so that was the point, was to show how loneliness and isolation can affect us, change us, which in turn shows us how much we need community and support from other people. And I was isolated a lot during my life, and I felt that. And you don't have to live in a marsh to feel lonely. A lot of people who live in cities, a lot of people who live in their small hometowns are lonely, and it's a common occurrence, unfortunately. And it does change us and affect us, and it's important. It's important to make those relationships, and that was one of the rewards of writing this book, is I have connected with so many people, and I feel so honored to have known and met so many of the readers, and I cherish that relationship.
Well, and in exploring that theme of loneliness, and you bring in the beauty of nature and the connection that Kaya finds just with the sounds of the marsh. And this is my first time really to the South, and here we were visiting Charleston and kind of hearing the cicadas and all of this. This vibrancy. I'm like, wow, this is that concept of finding comfort in company and noise that you know at least in the grand scheme of the universe, you are not alone. And the way that you are able to bring to life these areas that I had never been to, it is so powerful. And I was looking at your biography, and I'm thinking, boy, she was playing the long game to Hollywood darling, all of those years ago, with a bachelor's in science and a PhD in wildlife, right? Like behavior. I mean, it is incredible, the gift that you have for writing this novel. So would you take me to the moments when you first started jotting down your notes for this story, and how it came to be? I mean, it's absurd that it's a debut novel.
Well, thank you. I really, in some way or the other, have been working on this book all of my life. Okay, it took 10 years to write it, which, people are shocked, but really I've been working on it my entire life. And that's not an exaggeration. As a young girl, my mother would encourage me to go way out of the woods. She was an outdoor girl and I was a tomboy, and I loved riding my horse out into and watching nature. It was a big part of my life. And I felt at home in nature. I wasn't afraid of the woods because I spent so much of my time there. And I realized how much you can learn from nature and how it makes you feel comfortable and alone. I mean, not alone. It makes you feel comfortable even when you are alone. And so I decided to take that direction for my career and became a wildlife scientist. And then one of the parts of that, of my experience and my observations that had the greatest impact on me, is how social mammals, like the group of elephants and the group of lions, they're all made up of females and they're very tightly bonded. The males come and go for mating, and this is when my girlfriends say you had to go all the way to Africa to learn that males go from one group to the next for mating. But it's true that group of that tightly bonded group of mammals is in us. It's part of our instinctual makeup. And when we are isolated, that's the reason we feel it so intensely. It's part of our genes. It's in our genes. And so I just became determined to write a novel, not a nonfiction book, but I wanted to write fiction so that a lot of people would read it and better understand why they feel the way they do. Why do they feel so lonely? Why do they feel it so deeply that they want to belong? Why do they feel hurt? At one time or the other, we're all isolated or rejected or somehow have issues and we feel alone. And even if we're in a big city. And so it's important to know why you feel that way. It's also important to know that you can solve your problems on your own when you have to. And Kaya shows us over and over again that you can pick yourself up and just keep going. And that's one message I wanted to get through in the book.
Yeah, she is a remarkable, inspiring picture of resilience and depth and softness. But in the course of the story, you shine such a light on just how some of us can default to emotive cruelty and pushing back on others who are different or strange, or that instinct to reject others, maybe to be included for ourselves. And it's just so heartbreaking what this girl goes through.
It is. It's heartbreaking. It is definitely heartbreaking, but it's something that a lot of people can identify with. And the movie, they show that so well, because in a movie, of course, a movie's more visual, and then you, even as well as you can write, no matter how well you write something, the movie is so much more, in your face and real. And they do that. They show, even in the movie, they show the loneliness, and they show how she feels when she does, when she is able to form a relationship and fall in love and all of these things. It's very, very emotional. I try to make it emotional in the book, and I think it is. And I think that's another reason people like the book, is because the emotions are deep. And they're when they're happy, really happy, and sad, quite sad. I mean, you go from one to the other. It's like a roller coaster.
It is. I mean, from courtroom drama to, love and heartbreak to mystery to suspense to, family drama. It's coming of age. It's everything. And I feel you'd have to be completely soulless to not fall in love with this book. And thankfully, it translates to. I mean, the movie does it justice and brings it all to life one more time. I want to talk about, in particular. I mean, of course, Kai is the focus of the book, but as you were crafting the character of Tate, I mean, as a reader, Tate to me is like the ultimate. His love for sharing reading and his father's affinity for poetry and all of these little things, not to mention, the science and the appreciation of nature, which is obviously so at your core. He's just a kind of a magical character.
I know. I wish I could say I knew a Tate. I don't.
Me too.
He's very fictional. He is a dream. But I did make him real. I wanted to make him real. And that's the reason, Tate was not perfect. He made some mistakes. And Chase was not all bad either. No one is all good or all bad. And so there was a little bit of mix in both of them. But Tate is a very, very special person in my heart. And he shows, us how the way he reached out to someone who needed to, another person in their lives, the way he reached out. He didn't have to do that. I mean, he was a young man. He had so many other interests going out, but he knew the situation that Kaya was in. He had known all of his life since he was a little boy, and he reached out to her and taught her how to read. And that, of course, as we know, being readers and writers, how important that is. And her learning to read just opened the world. It allowed her to take the talents that she had and actually make them into a profession. And Tate was there for her, even giving her a list of publishers, and in so many ways he was there for her. And he sort of represented everything that she was lacking in her life. He came along. And then, of course, we don't want to do too many spoilers, but when everything's not perfect with that part of the storyline, again, she has to depend on herself. And so it's about sharing and being able to actually have the courage to give up part of yourself to someone else, to trust them enough that you can expose those vulnerable parts of yourself. And that's something that you give away. As she said several times, she felt like she was giving away part of herself when she trusted someone, and you do. And it doesn't always work out the way you hope. But again, in the end, it makes her strong.
Tell me what it was like to see this come to life in front of you and to visit the set and to just be part of this process. I can't imagine when you started writing down this story and reflecting on your moments in nature and running wild as a little girl, that someday you'd be experiencing this.
No, I never dreamed that. And you have to understand, of course, I'd known Kaya for a lot longer than anyone else. And I had known the shack. I had known all these things in my heart for so long. I never thought I would meet Kaya. Okay. And then suddenly I'm introduced to Daisy Edgar Jones, and I just really became emotional because I was standing in front of Kaya. And when they invited me to go to the set several times, and when they took me through the woods and I walk around these big, beautiful trees, just as I'd written them. And there's Kaya's shack, and they had built it. Every inch of that is the way I imagined it, under the big oak tree and the veranda with the screen porch that's, has the rusted out screen, and every detail. Her drawing, Kaya's drawings, the little boat that she gets on by herself and goes to the marsh, even as a child. And young Kaya, who's played by Jojo Rodana, she is so perfect. And in fact, all of the cast, I have to say, the cast is just brilliant. And
Amazing.
I just felt they did Sony and Hello Sunshine did a fabulous job of the casting and the set. It was just as I imagined it. Beautifully done.
Did you have any hesitation when you, of course, I mean, of course, with these big names, it's like Reese Witherspoon's calling you. I mean, you obviously feel pretty confident that this is going to turn out high quality, but it's so personal. These are your people. This is your story. Did you feel nervous going and thinking, what if somehow all the creative, brilliant people from this industry actually didn't get it?
I was very nervous. Even though they brought me in on the very beginning and I'd read the scripts and everything. I still was nervous. You never know. And even after being on the set, I mean, when I'd never been on a movie set before, and they'll film 2 or 3 minutes and then cut, or 3 or 4 minutes and then cut. So you can't really see how everything's piecing together exactly. And so I didn't, for example, I'd seen several scenes with Tate and Kaya, with Taylor and Daisy. I'd seen them taking them, but still I didn't know how the story was going to flow. Oh my gosh, when it was all put together, everything fit so perfectly with the editing and the way that the story is developed, and then it's beautifully done. But I have to say that the movie comes across as a thriller. Really, it's a hold on to your seat kind of movie. I mean, I was sitting with Elizabeth Gabler from Sony, and I mean, several times I grabbed the seat of my chair, and of course I cried through the whole thing, and it was just very emotional. The emotions are raw and real and come through. The good parts and the serious parts are, but I didn't expect it to be such a thriller. It is.
It is, and then some. And I went with two friends who, of course, love the book, and we were on that same roller coaster ride and saying, oh, you also never know if maybe the plot of a movie is going to differ from the book. And so I said, why were we so stressed out? I mean, we know what's coming, but you're just completely there in it. So as we wrap up, I was trying to research now how many weeks Crawdads has been a bestseller. I mean, it's impossible. I'm not good at math. So now that this book is going to be back in front of everybody, because everybody should read this book and see the movie. I mean, what kind of record-setting streak are you on? And please tell me that there is another novel coming from you.
It's been on the bestseller. I think it's 166 weeks. As of this September, which is just a few months away, it'll be 4 years. 4 years, if I make it till September.
I think
yeah. And then I am working on another novel, and I've written 3 drafts, and I'm very happy with the character development. I'm very happy with the theme that I'm trying. It has another very deep human theme to it, but explores some of it explores human nature and how much we can learn about human nature from nature itself. But there's some plot issues that I'm having right now. I've only written 1 novel, so I'm not an expert. I'm learning. It's really an on-job training, So I have to work through those issues, and I'm hopeful that I'll get them.
Delia, there is a picture of you on your website as a little girl out in nature with this beautiful smile and looking free as a bird. If your mother could see where this story has gone and where your life has taken and where her inspiration has taken you, what would you want to say to her? What would she say to you?
Well, I that's very great question. She would be so happy. She would be so proud. We did nature together. She and I would go canoe camping in the swamps, just my mother and I in the canoe. I'm not talking about with a guide. And so she came to visit me in the wild wherever I was. And so it was something that we shared, and she would have loved this story. She would have felt like she knew Kaya. She would have been very proud, and she would have said, see, I told you, go way out yonder where the crawdads sing. That's what she would have said.
Thank you so much. Truly, I am so grateful for your time and have the opportunity to speak to you, and truly grateful for this book. It is just beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Oh.
Enjoy the South. Enjoy the South.
It's time for a moment with Margaret. And Margaret, we were so lucky when we got to see Where the Crawdads Sing early before the release. And I just was able to talk with Delia Owens, and what a remarkable lady. And it was so exciting to connect with an author in looking at how they see the movie version of the story that she worked 10 years on, if not her whole life on, really. And to know that she was so happy with it. And I'm not surprised, because we loved it.
Well, she spent a lot of time on set, which is why we didn't get any more actual books from her in the last couple of years. So, but the movie was beautiful. So I can say that felt like definitely the Bayou was a character, not Bayou, the marsh was a true character. And I think that it overall served the book very well.
Oh, totally. And we know that it's so easy to be grossly disappointed when you go in, because you've got your own people in mind. I mean, we're envisioning our own actors and the space. And I think what you said about the setting and the feel and the noise and the lushness and the humidity and all of all of that, especially, is what she was talking about too, about the way Kai's house was, and going to see it in person. That she was like, wow, that's exactly, I mean, just to the detail of what she had created in her mind. So that's super cool. So of course, this is one of the most highly anticipated movies of the summer, but there are a lot of really popular books soon headed to the screen. And of course, I mean, it's hardly anybody goes to the movies now. So most of the big stuff is going to, series, Netflix, Hulu, whatever.
Yeah, and even if they are made into movies, a lot of them are going to Netflix and Hulu specifically. And for immediate release, like you said, we've talked about Sharp Objects being a limited series that was on HBO that we loved. So I think also a thing about the imagination of Delia Owens is, I think a lot of people get let down by books to TV or books to movies because you do have that imagination in your head, but sometimes that Hollywood magic cannot translate as well. So very much like the ending with the movie with Delia Owens, little bit different than the book. So, those things just don't translate the same way. So keeping that in mind, we know that Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, a very highly anticipated series that's coming out later this year.
I cannot wait.
I don't know when. And it's starting to get weird in life where I'm feeling older than a lot of the people in Hollywood, that I have no idea who any of these people are that have been cast.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you their names.
Well, so I think the main woman, I believe she's Elvis Presley's granddaughter. I think that's who's playing Daisy.
What a lucky gig.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's Riley Keough, if I'm getting that right, which not to be confused with the Keoughs of the original seasons of Housewives of Orange County, not that family, which is what threw me off, actually, sadly, when I first saw the casting. But I believe this is Priscilla Presley's daughter.
Yeah. And I think she might have been the name I actually knew. Mm-hmm. There might have been one other that I went, oh yeah, I know who that is. But the others, I'm like,
Yeah.
Similar to the second Gossip Girl remake, which again, I had no idea who these people were. And God bless them, you know, thank you for thank you for redoing a redo of a book that I read in high school. And it's a series and called Gossip Girl by Cecily Von, Zygazer.
Yes.
Zygazer. And true to form, the TV series on the CW, RIP, not really, but you know, for me, that was like that was a huge show for me in college. But I'd read it in high school, and that, you know, takes its literary liberties, so to speak, with the characters and who's who, but it still had that really rich identity of New York being its own character and the insane amounts of money that go through some of these high class families.
Yep.
Very fun. So that was one I watched, I read, I loved. Another one that's coming out, we talked about, the Nightingale. That's supposed to be coming out.
When?
The last article I saw said like December 23rd. I don't know that they want to rip our hearts out like that at Christmas time, but
I'll be there.
Kristen Hanna, that has to be Kristen Hanna's #1 book.
Yes. And I'm embarrassed to say I have not read The Great Alone. But that's the only other one of her books that I've heard someone say that they think that they felt even more for it than The Nightingale, which blows my mind. So I think that's why I've been like too afraid to like even go there. But obviously I've got to read it.
I think it was me that said that.
Really?
It's possible that, because I've read that one.
Yeah.
And or you know, it was read to me. Thank you, audiobooks. But that was one that like really got me. And I think Nicole Kreitz also read it recently in the last year or so. But that one I'd love to see that as a movie or a limited series. I think it would work better as a movie, but that was a good one. So we've got that to look forward to gut us. Another movie that is allegedly coming out, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And Rachel McAdams was on the list of actresses that are supposedly tied to this film.
So who would she have to sort of be the mother, right?
Have to be. And see, again, that makes me go, huh? It's a rite of passage. We're only going to get there at some point, but
yeah, I mean, how has that not been done? Well, you know what? Because it would probably have been too much before, but now I think you probably really could do it.
Yeah,
well.
I think Judy Blume, for one of like quintessential growing up authors, right? For girls especially. 1, 2, you write about a character, a young girl named Margaret, and you don't think I'm gonna go and be part of that? Like, Margaret is not a name that I grew up with being called Margaret, because it feels very old. And that comes with the territory of being a young girl growing up and having all these trials and tribulations. Similar to like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, right? It's similar in its own right, and has been a
classic. That would be great.
Have you watched The Handmaid's Tale?
I haven't.
You haven't? Me neither. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
That was the first book I read the whole thing as it was an assignment. Now, I need all of my high school teachers to plug their ears and pretend I'm not talking. And I did not read one book all the way through. Oh, Mom, also need you to not listen. But I didn't read one book all the way through, because you're given these books that have nothing to do with things that you care about. They're really good classic books. The Handmaid's Tale was the first book I was assigned in my English class my freshman year at Bakersfield College. Go Renegades. So I was really intrigued by and I like it so much that it starts to feel really icky to continuously read dystopian novels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to watch that stuff play out, things that are really terrifying in the book, is just a little too much for me, and that's
Mm-hmm.
big reason.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
know.
it hits a nerve, I think, with a lot of people. So, but I do feel like I've missed out profoundly on watching this show. And like, you never want like to, have something happen where you're, in traction or stuck at home, like watching whatever. But that's what I should have watched. I should have just hunkered down and just started watching that when I had COVID, because it's you need all of this time. Cause I do feel like I'm out of a conversation that I wanted to be in, and then it just like got too late.
That's how I felt about Euphoria.
Mhm.
I finally got to a point where so many TikTok videos and memes and my friends, everybody was talking about it, to a point that I couldn't go further in life without watching it. And then I binged it. And I don't recommend you binging Euphoria. It is, and especially after I had a very, hard emotional time, a friend of mine was like, don't watch that all together at the same time. Like that's going to damage. And I said, oops, I already did. It's too late. I did it. Last one I'll talk about. Oh, we've talked about A Man Called Uwe by Friedrich Bachman, who has a new book coming out, and I got approved for it. I'm very, 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 very excited. You.
Oh yeah.
So You is apparently a series, and I didn't know this. I mean, I knew this, but I didn't know it was a full series. I have watched that show and I love it.
Yeah, I love that actor. And then I stopped at kind of maybe second season or something. So I do need to re-pick it up, because I've seen a lot of like what is gone on in the last when he's paired up with this. So I want to make it through, because I enjoyed it. I don't know why we didn't keep watching it. I think it was just a time thing. But was it a young adult series, or was it, what kind of series was it, I wonder?
No, it's
not read.
No, it's the author is Caroline Kepnes. Sorry, I keep putting the P in the wrong place. It's Kepnes. And in fact, I chatted about this with one of the women who also attended the screening of
Crawdads.
Yes, thank you. And she was saying how much she loved this series. And I had said that I'd watched the show, but I hadn't read the series. And she was asking if we were eventually going to get that author on the podcast. And so maybe, sure. But similarly to Big Little Lies, like Leanne Moriarty, another really good not classic book, but a really good, strong book that really well translated to TV series. So
yes. Oh, that really did. I was just talking with Tony about, one of our favorite books was Time Traveler's Wife. And the movie, I mean, even though I loved the actors in the movie like was not, that was one of the, like, I would say going to see Crawdads, it felt that it lived up to the book. Mm-hmm. Even though, to me, the book is, you're more emotional, of course, with the book, but I felt that the movie really did the spirit of the book justice. And I felt like, Time Traveler's Wife, like it let you down in a little bit. There's so much more emotion to it that could have been in there, even though like Rachel McAdams, I would watch her in anything at any time. But there's a series version of it on HBO Max, and I haven't watched it yet, but it is on. And I was saying, why haven't we watched this? Because we love this story. And I was reading a review about it, and it was saying that it just allows, because of the time, it allows them to dig into the complexities of the relationship, and that sweeping, sort of very obviously complicated love story in such a deeper way that is more true to the book than the movie version was. So I really want to watch that and revisit that story, because I love that story.
It's interesting you say that. I had an exact conversation today with my new coworkers, about what a newsroom is like, and as far as telling stories specifically, because I said, you have this much time to tell this much story times 10, and you really can't do it great justice. And newsrooms get a lot of flack for that. Journalists get a lot of flack for that. Like, you have 50 stories that are supposed to go within 30 minutes. Like, where does that space go? And so, yes, TV series do give that opportunity to books, just like long form documentaries or, very specific, other shows of that nature, like docu-series that gives you that opportunity to dig deeper into the detail that you don't have the time to do. I do believe I saw that show is canceled now. So just if you watch it, go into it knowing that you might not.
I wonder if it was hoping to go longer or not. I mean, I guess probably, I don't know. I guess they're always hoping to go longer. But sometimes, like, what's been so good about some of these limited series deals, I mean, just, I'm even thinking of like even some of the shows like on Hulu recently, the oh gosh, the
Love Island.
The what?
Love Island? Just kidding.
The one that Krakauer adaptation, the one about the murder in Utah. With oh my gosh, I'm losing my
not going to help you on this one at all. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Under the banner of heaven.
Oh, I was going to say, let me turn my TV on really quick. Go on Hulu.
It was, it's really good because that they're wrapping it up. I mean, it's 7, 8, whatever, 9 episodes, and you're getting to the conclusion of the series, which I like. I like, and even if you might want more because you like those actors or it was so well done or whatever, it's better, I think, for the consumer of the entertainment to know that story is being like wrapped up. Which okay, I'm done with this. It's good.
I think with like Hulu and Netflix and HBO, they tend to give more of that wrap up to shows if they're being canceled, unlike major networks. I will say, like,
nothing worse than that. When something's just hanging and you're like, they're coming back, right? No?
Especially if it's based on a book and they didn't get to the pivotal moments or didn't reflect on that. Like Sharp Objects was a limited series. It ends where the book ends, the end. But there was a lot of hubbub about it coming back for a second season. And I thought, how?
Well, it's exactly what the Leanne Moriarty did, the Reese Witherspoon show.
Big Little Lies.
Yeah, the first season ends where the book ends, and then we still have a second season.
And it's like, how do you live up to that? Because especially for those who read the books and feel the finality, like when you close a book, you're like, oh, especially books like that, you're like, yes, that's it. Like it's like to reopen that case.
No. Yeah.
Or dive deeper into characters, very much like Sex and the City. When we ended the show, even though it's based on a book, so ended the book, we go on to the show, we ended it, we're done, we've wrapped. Now we open it for 1 movie, 2 movies,
1 more movie.
Then it's like now a series that people are like, you've got to stop.
Documentary about that new series.
It's not ruining, but like I watched the first episode of the new series and I was no. I'll get to it eventually. But the thing is like as you dive deeper, your thoughts and your feelings about characters completely change. And if you revisit the book, it could change how you see these characters.
Yeah.
And I don't like.
What about Firefly Lane before we wrap up? Because I had not read that book. I watched the series and then I'm like, oh my gosh, where is this going? What's happening? And then all of a sudden it's done. And I'm like, is that what the book was all about? So that's just basically the first half of the book, right?
I don't know, because I'm going to tell you a secret. I cannot stand Katherine Heigl.
There are people who feel that way. I know there is a contingent of
I think what ruined it for me was the ugly truth. where there is zero truth about what happens in Sacramento producing of a morning news program.
That's right.
I worked at the time. I was a morning news reporter in Sacramento, and literally nothing was truthful about that portrayal. And it just like irked me. And I don't know. It's also, her acting style is just not for me, and that's okay. I just can't get past it enough to watch a book about that was written by one of my favorite authors.
Okay.
Personal thing.
Yes.
I'm sure it's a lovely story.
It was enjoyable. It just ended like with nothing. So it obviously ends in the middle of the book. I cannot imagine that this is where the book ends. The book has to tell you more. It really like is leading up to something, and then we're waiting for this big revelation of sort of what tore them apart. And then there we are. We're just waiting. So it's clearly a setup for a second season, but I mean, I felt like a little abused because it seemed like they just, it was too much of a drag out.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to be abused by any television show. But have you finished reading Ruth Ware, The It Girl?
Yes, and I loved it. You didn't love it?
I did not love it.
Fantastic.
For an interesting reason, and I guess we can get into that another day.
Yes. Oh,
it'll be
good.
interesting.
Cliffhanger.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. On that note, a moment with Margaret. Margaret, really quick, I was trying to look up, just because I think that this may change your opinion on Katherine Heigl, but now I can't find the name of the movie, that where she is sort of like a psycho-obsessive stalker. And she is so good in it. It's very campy, so it's kind of unforgettable. It was a 2017 movie, and it's one of those movies I could probably watch it 25 times. I'm not exaggerating. And I'll just leave it at that.
Olivia's Book Club, the podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Fierro. Our producer is Margaret Stewart. Our editor is Nick Sanchez. You can send us an email with your thoughts or your book recommendations. Olivia's Book Club at azfamily.com is the address. And you can check out Olivia's Book Club on Facebook or find us on Instagram. Hello, Bookstagrammers, at olivias.bookclub. And Margaret is at Overbooked and Overdue. Make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast and tell your friends. You can find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music.
This is Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.